Oh man, guys, it is a chilly one out there today. But regardless, we are back for video number 3, painting our barred owl. We're gonna be jumping into a lot more detail today, starting with those eyes and moving on down the body just like we did the other day, just refining him, making this guy come to life. Let's do it. Okay, so today I'm gonna be using basically the same palette as I did the other day. And this is, again, titanium white, burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, burnt umber, cadmium yellow. And before I start, let me clean off my palette here. And we're gonna start off with adding some reflections in these eyes, kind of bring them to life. And they're gonna be based off of this painting I did right here with the blue and white mixture. This is just gonna give him like, kind of like the sky is reflecting into his eyes. And so it's gonna give him like this nice glossy, shiny look to his eyes. So we're gonna start off by doing that and see how that makes things look. So I'm going to use a pretty small brush here. I got this little guy. There's a little liner brush right there. Get a little wet. And this is just, again, gonna be the white. And a little bit of the ultramarine blue. And that is gonna go right on his eye once we've got a good mixture there. And it doesn't really have to be a specific tone. I just kind of going for a nice sky blue color. And with this liner brush, I'm just rolling the brush in it and pulling it as I go, and I'll get a nice point on that brush right there, okay? So, now remember I had the light source up here in this upper right-hand corner. That's kind of where the light's coming from, so that's where the reflection's gonna go. And I'm gonna start off by just kind of adding a little line right here. Even that right there looks awesome, but it's a little bit dry, so I'm gonna get a little more water in my paint, and it's gonna just go in a lot smoother. Okay, that's pretty good. And it's just, I'm just kind of doing a nice little curved shape. A couple dots on there. All right, and then do it to the other side. On the other side, I might make it a little darker. So mix in more with that blue with your paint. And this side, let's see how this looks. And maybe a little bit less, because this side doesn't have so much of that direct sunlight. Okay, now I might take that off just a little bit right there. Kind of play with it, see what looks best. All right, so let's do a little bit of burnt sienna on a different spot on our canvas. And this is gonna give some life into his eyes. Is on the opposite side, so we did our light here, and on the opposite side of his eye, so on this inside portion, we're just gonna bring a little bit of that red color right there. And that is going to give him a little bit of life right there. So this is kind of the bottom half. We're making a little bit of that red, or that burnt sienna color. That's gonna look pretty good. Now, I've kind of overdone my highlight a little bit here on both of those. So now I'm gonna go back and add some darks. So again, that's the burnt umber and ultramarine blue. Mix that in its own area over here. That nice dark color. And the thing with acrylic painting, at least for the way that I do it, is I tend to just mix lots and lots of piles of paint, and I don't really care when they dry off on my palette here. You just get good at mixing colors quickly and matching colors quickly. So I'm gonna kind of undercut that highlight a little bit because I feel like it got a little big on me. Maybe add a couple little cuts through it. There we go. Yeah, I like that better. And over on this side too. You just kind of want to not make it look too painted. That's the trick. Okay. I feel like he's got some life in his eyes now. And that's the thing, is like we're doing this and we're gonna just we'll come back and work on it some more later. Oh, but I am gonna add just to satisfy my curiosity, I'm gonna add that white highlight in his eye. So I'm just getting pure white. I'm just gonna do one dot right about there. And then maybe just a teeny dot on that one. Oh yeah. He's alive! Fantastic. That looks great. All right, so we've got his eye. Now, I'm gonna start building up the areas around his eye first. So, yesterday when we were doing this was, I kept the colors very kind of in the middle, you know, just middle tones, not anything that's like really, really bright. So now, that's gonna give me room to kind of work upwards and build him up in layers. So, I'm gonna get some white here and some of this burnt umber. Just get a really nice color here, some burnt sienna. We're just going for this nice, like the next layer up from this kind of gray tone. Might grab some of that black I made. But I do want it a little warmer than that, so let's mix in some of that burnt sienna. Put that little glob in there. Okay, let's see how this looks. Make sure you got, if you're using a small brush, it's important to have, you know, a little bit of liquid mixed in with your paint so it flows really well, because just that little tip can't carry very much paint unless it's nice and wet. Okay, so I'm gonna start adding his eyelid in again here. And just kind of short strokes is how we're building this up. And then his bottom lid. And this is gonna come out like this. Couple white eyelashes kind of thing. Okay, so see how we're building up this layer now? Now it's important as you're doing this to keep that middle tone underneath, in between. Like I'm not just like covering everything up with this light color. I'm leaving gaps intentionally so that we get some depth. And I'm just kind of working in these kind of semicircular patterns around his eye. You gotta remember they're nice, like and just they're just kind of feathery. So as long as you've got the direction of the feathers going right, I mean, like you're gonna get all sorts of different lengths sometimes. But yeah, for the face here, we're gonna keep it nice short strokes. Nice short strokes, leaving those mid-tone gaps underneath. There we go. There we go. Yeah. All right. Keep building this up. I'm going to move up to the higher portion of his face. See how I'm leaving all these nice gaps here, and that's how you create this illusion of fur or feathers. Anytime you're doing something like that, you got to do it in layers, and you got to leave a darker color underneath this lighter color in between those strokes. So keep building it up, keep building it up. Okay, look at that, beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna mix in a little bit more white in my color, just enough to bring it up a shade. And now I'm gonna work on this inner portion. Now, these ones, the feathers kind of are spraying towards the center right here. So see how I'm kind of going towards the center of his face first? Because they kind of point towards his beak here and then kind of rotate that way. Okay, there we go. Okay. Now, remember to leave those gaps. Don't go too much. The key is just do it and then move on. Leaving gaps in between, so you get the feathers to look real. Okay. Now, a little more white, and I'm just gonna just highlight this part of his eyelid a little bit more, where the sun's gonna hit it. Okay. I feel like that side of his face is coming along. Before I move on, I'm gonna start building up some of these feathers along the outside of his face, and these are just gonna be more just thicker strokes that are curling around his face here. Now, I'm gonna mix in just a little bit of yellow, because this is gonna add that sunshine and that warmth along with a little bit of burnt sienna. This is gonna give him that nice warmth, as if the sun's a warm light source like the sun is gonna shine on him. Oh yeah, so see the difference there? Now along the edge, it's going to be pretty solid, because these feathers, when they're coming towards you, you're going to see the gaps in between, and then as they're rotating around, they're going to kind of overlap to the point where you won't see the gaps in between. So right along the edge, we're not going to worry too much about those gaps in between the feathers, and it's going to be more solid with less gaps. So see, I'm kind of filling that portion of it in right along the edge of his face, and then as it comes towards the middle, you start seeing those gaps. There we go. Now I'm going to get the top of his head here. There we go. Start building up those layers, and then as it comes towards the center, reveal more and more of those gaps. Okay. Yeah, I love how that warm color shows the light shining on him. Okay, so a little more over here, but not too much, because that's not, our light source isn't gonna come all the way around. There we go. Okay. I'm going to take more of this warm color and start building up just a couple zones in here. There we go. Just to give them that nice light. Yep, and on this portion around his beak, this is just going to give him that warmth. I actually might even put a little tiny bit of that in his eye, just because that's gonna show that the light source is the same light source is hitting his eye, that's hitting the rest of his body. All right, a little more in this top lid, and this is just one of those things, you know, you just keep building up the layers, and you get into a rhythm, and start figuring it out. You're just playing with the colors. Okay. I like it. Okay. I'm gonna do a little bit of this over here. Again, kind of pointing towards the inside first. Overlapping that dark portion in between this dark strip here. So I'm just kind of covering it up a little bit. Yep. And now remember, I'm still using this light color over here, so it's not going to be, I'm not going to use it very far into this half of his face, because we want to start transitioning into a more cool tone and giving him that three-dimensionality. Okay. Okay. Now, I'm going to get some of this dark color, mix it back in, and that's going to give us a little bit of that cooler color. Might mix some burnt umber and ultramarine blue. Just kind of start toning back this building layer so that we're not having so much of that sunlight hit him on that side of his face. Okay, so now as we're starting to build this, we're going to adjust it as we go because you'll rarely nail the color on the first try. So I'll usually do a couple strokes, test out the color, and go back and adjust it if it's too light, too dark, too warm, too cool. There we go. All right. There we go. Now, a little more water in my mix here because that's going to help it flow. And now, maybe you've noticed this as I'm working on it, but as I'm going, I'm using my brush very flatly, and so it's going to give me a nice flat cross section of my bristles, and that's going to help me get these nice fine lines. Because even with a liner brush, sometimes you can get a line that's too thick, and it's difficult to get it right where you want it, but kind of flattening it out is a good way to remedy that. So just hit it a couple times on your palette in the same direction, both sides, flipping it 180 degrees to get a nice flattening of that round brush. Okay. All right. Now, again, going back to short strokes here, leaving gaps in between. Go. Now, there we go. Build up that eyelid a little bit, maybe a little bit on this side. There we go. All right. Keep building this up. Eyes here, making these little rings as we go, and I'm going to even tone this color down one more time right there, and this is really going to start giving him some roundness, and as we go we're going to be doing more things to adjust his three-dimensionality, but this is going to give us just a great head start on that. So let's finish out the roundness over here. Kind of build that up right there around the back side of his head. And I'm actually going to mix in quite a bit of blue in with this now. And this is going to just kind of make a very dramatic reflected light on his head here. Because this is not the direct light. Because the direct light we said was over here, right? So if we look, he's in a room, he's in the forest, he's in the fog somewhere, I don't know where he is, but he's in an atmosphere and stuff is going to bounce the light back onto this side of his body, but it's going to be a cool color. So that's why mixing in this blue is this is just going to give us that real factor of trying to show that reflected light on the back side of his head and on the back side of his body here. Yep. And before we move on, I'll probably change and go back to my blacks so I can kind of reinstate my black colors that I may have covered up too much of, and then we'll move on down his body some more. Okay. Okay, so he does have this little white chin area right here, which is quite a bit lighter. So I'm gonna paint that in real quick. Just sometimes it's good to just not overthink it. Just use short strokes, paint it all in there. So before I move on from the head, let's finish out his beak, actually. That's the next thing that's on my mind. So I'm gonna get a nice white and a little bit of yellow here. Just make this nice kind of pale yellow color. We'll see what that looks like when we paint it on here. But I'm gonna mostly work on the right half of it. Right there. Don't want to go too far. Okay, so now I'm going to mix in a little bit of burnt sienna and a little bit of this blue color that I had mixed up. And that's going to kind of tone it down so we can make this far edge just a hair less bright. And also use that same color over on this side. Just kind of sculpting this out. Okay. Maybe a little bit of this darker, this bluey color mixed in. I'm just kind of winging it here. Okay. I like that right there. Now, I think I'm going to probably add a little bit of a more intense, I want a little more of an intense yellow, so I'm going to just take this cadmium yellow, mix it off to the side here, and then just kind of add it very strategically over. Let's go right down the middle of it, just really lightly, just a little bit, just the littlest bit of that straight yellow. It's going to make his beak pop out. Okay, mix in a little more of the burnt sienna, and then we'll do it on this side too. We're just kind of doing little strokes, building it up. Okay, I do like that. That makes his beak look really nice and alive. Like he's got it stands out from the rest of his face a little bit, just like it does in real life. So I'm gonna take a little bit of white and add a little highlight right there. Boom. Okay. Let's keep moving down the rest of his body before we get too distracted, because I could just keep working on this head for a long time and I don't want to do that. So let's start building up this next portion on his neck. This is going to be a nice light gray color, and yeah, right there. A light spot there. This is you're just looking at your reference picture, going back and forth. And yeah, so remember how these feathers, these are going to be kind of hatching this direction. So I'm just going to start off by putting a couple light strokes on there. Kind of, if I see a dark spot, I'll put a light spot on top of it like that, and that's going to help it look like there's some layering, because it'll look like there's a shadow then underneath those feathers. Okay. There we go. Now as I'm moving around, I'm gonna again go to this more cool gray color for my light as I'm building it up, working that three-dimensionality. There we go. There we go. All right. So I'm liking where this is going so far. I'm just trying to move real quickly, cover my ground, and then I'll come back later. Okay. So that's looking good, but I'm noticing as I'm going that he's kind of, you know, I want more shadows here. I feel like I'm losing out on my shadows. So I'll be making a mental note that, hey, I want to put those shadows back in on the back side later. So let's start working down this part of his body. So now I'm going to I think I'm going to switch over to my slightly larger round brush here, and this is gonna help me get some nice vertical strokes in there. So dampen my brush, get it in here. I'm just gonna kind of get some large, longer strokes. You gotta just be brave. You gotta just do it. There we go. And you notice sometimes when I'm running out of paint, my brush will get dry, but that can be an advantage too, because if I start, I can just kind of rub back and forth repeatedly on a spot, and it'll just kind of very, very lightly put on some paint, and I can start. It's kind of a good way to very slowly build up that nice feathery texture. So you'll see as it runs out of paint, I'll just kind of keep brushing it back and forth, back and forth. All right. There you go. So for this, I don't want too much paint on my brush at one time. So if I'm over here and I get a lot of paint on here, I'll actually like wipe it off a little bit and then come back over here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I'm looking at this, and I gotta put these kind of darker strips back in too. So I'm gonna go back to my dark color with that blue, ultramarine blue, and the burnt umber. I've got quite a bit of paint on there, so I'm gonna kind of wipe it off over here. Okay, and let's just kind of add in some more of these bars in our barred owl. There we go. Okay, see how we're adding those dark sections back in. There we go. Yeah. This is when you gotta kind of be patient in the process and just kind of keep watching it change. You just do one thing, sit back, look at it, and then keep moving. So while I've got this kind of darker color, I'm gonna kind of go back in here and put my shadows back, because I feel like it got a little too light over here. Like I don't think the light should be going that far. I can just kind of use that dry brush technique to kind of rub in the shadow. Okay, there we go. Do like that. I'm also going to build up a little bit in there. Yeah, right there. Beautiful. I'm going to add a little bit more of a shadow underneath this portion of his face. And over on this side. And then probably actually right here, I'm seeing in my reference picture, there's some darkness there. And I'll rub it out a little bit. I just want a little bit of a light shadow underneath some of those feathers. Yeah. Okay, there we go. I like how that's coming along. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty scared about these feathers here, just because I feel like I don't know why. I just feel like there's potential for me to mess up here. So I'm just gonna take it nice and slow, and we'll see how it goes. Because all these feathers that we've been doing so far are like nice little short feathers. These ones are like very large and shiny. Or I don't know how else to put it other than like they're like a bigger surface. These are all like kind of short, choppy. These are like big feathers. Like these are what you think of when you think of the word feather. These are actually like, he uses these to fly. We gotta do it right. So I'm gonna start off just kind of, I don't know, a mid-tone that's lighter than those, because I got to build it up, and then also maybe a little warmer too, because again, this is where the light's hitting him, our warm light source. So I'm going to start over here. Just kind of, since these are bigger feathers, we're going to use bigger, longer strokes of paint. And with these bars, I'm going to be putting this lighter color on the light side of his back. So see how there's going to be a light and then a shadow and then a light and a shadow for these individual feathers. There we go. And I'm using my finger just to kind of blend them a little bit. I don't need so much of a gap on that one because it's close to the edge. Okay, there we go. And that one's gonna come out right there. So it's gonna come, let's do right there. And I think kind of difficult to see on my reference picture where some of these are going. It is just tough to see. I mean, like, that's what you get when you're using a reference picture you took with your cell phone. So let's just kind of keep using it, see what we can gather from this, and then if we need to go look at some other reference pictures, I mean, like, you can always, like, for when I'm at this point, sometimes I'll just go and like Google some pictures of the animal I'm doing, just so I can start seeing more of the structure of, like, okay, how are these feathers overlapping? How are they colored? What's their texture like? What's their structure like? How did God make these awesome animals? Okay. Now, as far as just using this one, I feel like I'm getting somewhere. There we go. Yeah. Okay. Then we got a couple of these longer skinny ones there. And then keep building it down this way. All right. That looks good. Now we can see in our reference picture that we've got these like lighter spots on them. So I'm going to mix in some white, and we're going to just very like kind of just block them on there of where they need to go. And this is tough because you don't want to make it look too much like a pattern. The trick is to kind of be spontaneous about where they're going and make it look a little bit random. Because stuff like this, it's very easy when you're putting in spots like this to be like turning them into polka dots. It's not what we want. We're trying to make this look very natural, very just organic, just like it does in the animal. It doesn't look like polka dots. So some of them are thick, some are thin, some go all the way across the feather, some don't. I'm just going to do a couple more over there. All right, and so then he's got a couple more. There. There we go. All right, he's got some on these feathers, poke out underneath. This, those are a little bit more like in line, I guess. So that'll be good. I think that looks about right. He's got a couple spots there. Yeah, he's coming to life now. So let's add a couple more. Okay, I'm calling it good. Okay. I think we're approaching the end of this segment of our painting because we have just added an entire layer of detail to this. I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to mix in some white with just a little bit of yellow here, mostly white. I just want a really bright sunshiny color. Like that's going to go right on the edge of his body. So let's add that on here. This is going to give him this very nice like side lit look. The light's coming right in on that side of his body. And you see how I'm kind of using these short strokes, a little bit of a drier brush. Maybe I'll put a little bit in there. there. A little bit down here. So yeah, once I get a color going, sometimes I just kind of start putting it in places where I think it needs it. Alright, so maybe I'll add a little bit more of this burnt sienna in with that when I put it on this side of his feathers. This is going to just make him stand right out. Alright, oops. Let's not mess it up last minute here. Okay, that is the end of this step, I think. We're right there. I'm gonna add in a couple, just dry brushing in that light color. Build up those feathers. There we go. Alrighty. I'm calling that. Look at me, I keep saying I'm calling it a day and then I keep painting. Oh my lands, you guys. I think this is coming along so nicely. I'm stoked to see the progress on this. I hope you guys are enjoying watching and doing this for yourself, hopefully some of you. We will return and finish this guy out in our next video. So stay tuned for that and we will see you there.